Welcome to the masterclass about supporting characters. Today we look at characters in a very specific way. I will look at how even secondary characters can take a primary function in your story, how they provide emotion and how they help you with building that plot, how they bring in exposition. And ultimately, I'll show you some examples of supporting characters that lived on in the memory of the viewers for many, many years after. All right, well, let's have a look at what we've got in the basket for today. Emotion usually follows from the relationship with other characters. And there will be plenty of examples today that illustrate that, where the character engages with another character, and that's where strongly emotional scenes come from. In terms of the purposes why you include or add new characters, obviously you need relationships for your main character, but the main reason obviously is to tell your story. You want to get story points across, and therefore you need to introduce characters into your story. Now, something I didn't really focus on yesterday, but you often have two options. When you write your plot, you can get certain story elements across in dialogue. You can mention certain characters that play a role in the causality of your story. Or you can just show those characters. And that decision is up to you. It often depends on how much is that character going to contribute to the story. Are they interesting in and of themselves? Or can you just mention them and move on and not show them? Through the examples you'll see today, you'll see in which cases the writers made the right call to write a new character in the story, even if they're not appearing for very many scenes. Often is still refreshing, and it kind of gives you some sort of diversity from the character set that you already have in your story. So you need to find that fine balance between having enough characters to tell your story, but on the other hand also not make it too lean. So, on the one hand, each character obviously adds to the budget, but you also need characters to enliven your story. And here is a scene from the True Grit remake by the Coen brothers, and you're introduced to the young character of Mattie Ross, who was billed as a supporting character. But in the overall story, you can easily say that she is the lead. She drives the story.
Well, I propose to sell those ponies back to you that my father bought.
Oh, that I fear is out of the question. I will see that they're shipped to you at my earliest convenience.
Well, we don't want the ponies now. We don't need them.
Well, that hardly concerns me. Your father bought the ponies and paid for them, and there's an end of it. I have the bill of sale.
And I want $300 for Papa's saddle horse that was stolen from your stable.
You have to take that up with a man who stole a horse.
Tom Chaney stole the horse while it was in your care. You are responsible.
Yeah, I admire your sand. But I believe you will find I'm not liable for such claims.
You were the custodian. If you were a bank ever robbed, you could not simply tell the depositors to go hang.
I do not entertain hypotheticals. The world as it is vexing enough. Secondly, your valuation of the horse is high by about $200. How old are you?
If anything, my price is low. Hi, Judy is a fine racing mare.
Many of the supporting characters we remember are not of the noble kind. They're often the antagonists. They're often the villains, the nemesis, or the shadow character. In the next clip from 3 Billboards, we'll see the character of Dixon, played by Sam Rockwell. This is seen halfway the film, the midpoint reversal, in which he will learn that his beloved Chief Willoughby has committed suicide. And you'll see that there's a delightful irony and contrast created, because he's in a state of blissful oblivion of what's going on, and then the news comes in. But this is a great example of a character who provides us with enormous emotion. His actions throughout the film will cause anger and fear, because we take the perspective of the character played by Frances McDormand, the lead in this film, However, as I've said in these classes before, I believe that Dixon has the greater emotional transformation in the film, and therefore, to my thinking, he's on an equal footing with Frances McDormand's character, and in that respect, it's almost like a dual protagonist situation.
Chiquitita, tell me what's wrong. You're enchained by your own sorrow. In your eyes, there is no hope for tomorrow. How I hate to see you like this. There is no way you can hide.
What the hell's going on around here? What?
In many of the clips that we'll see today, what is considered the lead character will not be in the scene. This is something I don't always recommend. I always recommend you have a single point of view and you, at least in early career, and you keep your main character in the scene. Why? Because it's very difficult to write stories that give equal weight to two or more characters. But this is a great example. Martin McDonagh's screenplay for 3 Billboards is brilliant. And if you haven't already read it or watched the film, I really recommend you do it and study it, because it's a wonderful character journey. In television, often it's the same situation as in these multi-protagonist films where we call them lead supporting characters, but they're almost, if not more important than the lead character. Here I'm going to show you the scene in which the character of Beth is introduced in the show Yellowstone. And you'll see it's primarily through dialogue, but it sets up the type of character she is.
We're just asking you to suspend the dividend.
And kill the stock.
What do you think's gonna happen when I dump our 18% share tomorrow morning? I'll tell you what, the stock will drop below 10, SEC will suspend trading, and every creditor you have will file on you. Your company will be Chapter 11 by Friday. And since we're your largest creditors, I can promise you there'll be no negotiating then. I will be CEO of IL Energy by Monday. I will fire every fucking employee. Then I will sell your leases and equipment to Chevron for 30 cents on the dollar. And you, buddy, you will have the unique distinction of being the only drilling company to go bankrupt in the largest oil boom of the last century. Won't that look good on a resume?
I started this company in my garage.
That's where it's gonna end up if you don't suspend the dividend and allow us to assume management. Don't look at him. You're dealing with me now.
Taylor Sheridan created it, and he wrote and directed the entire first season, which is an enormous accomplishment. Very, very rare. A movie where Miles Teller was the lead, but where we pretty much only remember the performance of J.K. Simmons, is Whiplash.
Do you think you're out of tune?
Yes.
Then why the fuck didn't you say so? I've carried your fat ass for too long, Metz. I'm not gonna have you cost us a competition because your mind's on a fucking Happy Meal instead of on pitch. Jackson, congratulations, you're 4th chair. Metz, why are you still sitting there? Get the fuck out! For the record, Metz wasn't out of tune. You were, Erickson. But he didn't know, and that's bad enough.
At the same time, a very interesting character, supporting character, but he's the one who steals the show in Whiplash. All these are examples of characters who provide strong emotion way more than the character themselves do. It's in the relationship with these characters that the emotion comes out, and films are all about emotion. So well-defined, well-written supporting characters are the ones that ultimately give you the emotional moments in your film. And I think that's an important lesson to remember. The purposes, what sort of reasons? So we mentioned plot, and that may well be the most important one. If you have a story to tell, sometimes it's just necessary to include a certain character in your film. You can do that, as I said, through dialogue, but sometimes you decide to include the character in the scenes because it's often an opportunity for actors to shine, even if this character appears in the film for only a few scenes. And a great example is Rendition. When we look at the poster, we see Jake Gyllenhaal and Reese Witherspoon. Below, we see Alan Alda and Meryl Streep, but Meryl Streep is only in a handful of scenes. But when she appears again, she completely commands the attention.
Maybe I should have a copy of the Constitution sent to your office.
What are you taking issue with? The disappearance of a particular man? Or national security policy?
You have him.
I didn't say that.
Yeah, I'll say. Mr. El Ibrahim should be brought back to the U.S. If he's guilty, try him. If not, let him go home.
Honey, this is nasty business. There are upwards of 7,000 people in central London alive tonight because of information that we elicited just this way. So maybe you can put your head on your pillow, feel proud for saving one man. Well, 7,000 perish, but I got grandkids in London, so I'm glad I'm doing this job. And you're not.
Unless your grandkid is Anwar El Ibrahim.
Let me get a copy of the 9/11 condition report over to your office in the morning. You sleep well now.
Another film I highly recommend if you haven't already seen it, directed by Gavin Hood. This was the film he did in between his supreme debut Tsotsi, which won the Oscar for Best Foreign Language Film, and then I think it was Wolverine that he did as his next, which was shot here in Sydney. So Meryl Streep, a supporting character. I would even argue that she's a not just secondary, but a tertiary character in the sense that she doesn't deal directly with our not in this case with our lead, because in the scene we have two supporting characters playing out this part of the plot. In The Untouchables, we have three supporting characters working with Elliot Ness to try and get Al Capone in court. And this is how the third helper, or the fourth of the team, is introduced. This is Wallace, and he's part of the plot because in this story, based on the true facts, ultimately Al Capone is brought to justice through tax evasion. And this was set up in this scene where Elliot Ness, who's been discouraged by the complete lack of support at the department, he returns to his office, and then this happens.
Mr. Ness?
Yes.
Oscar Wallace.
Uh-huh.
I've been assigned here by the Washington Bureau.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I'm glad to have you here, Mr. Wallace. Excuse me. We are a little in the dark here, but any ideas you may have.
Well, actually, yes, sir, I do. And the one that I want to try first is this. He has not filed a return since 1926.
A return?
An income tax return.
Income tax?
Yes, sir.
What do you do at the Bureau, Mr. Wallace?
Oh, I'm an accountant.
An accountant?
Yes, sir, and the Bureau has sent me here.
Would you excuse me? Please.
I wanted to give you a little bit more about The Untouchables because David Mamet, who wrote the screenplay, could have gone a number of ways. Obviously, the true facts tell us that it's a formality, it's a technicality that got Capone in court, which in itself is not interesting. He could have gone the cliche way and just have the cops and the good shooters go after Capone, but he chose to make this accountant part of the team. And I think that's part of what makes this setup quite memorable. We have Elliot Ness, who's a Treasury officer. Then we have the senior cop played by Sean Connery. Then we have the rookie cop, and the three are joined by this accountant, Wallace, which I find a very, very fresh, original dynamic. I want to show you a very short, few seconds only clip in which Wallace has to show that he's got the goods to be part of the team.
I need another man.
Ness, it's very interesting. I found a financial disbursement pattern here which shows some irregular...
You carry a badge?
Yes?
Carry a gun.
What this teaches us is that you'll get further if you create supporting characters that are colorful and memorable. Yes, they're there in your mind primarily to fulfill a story or plot function, but every character is worth or should be worth their time on screen. And some comic relief always works, as you can tell from this particular character. Here's another one. We have Whoopi Goldberg in the role of Oda Mae Brown in Ghost.
I just can't seem to make contact. I don't feel his vibe. No, wait. I'm feeling something. Did he know someone by the name of Anna? Consuelo? Lucita? Julieta? Josefina? Linda? Maria?
Sí, his mama. She is Maria.
Yes! Praise God, I knew he was with his mama.
Oh, my God.
It's too difficult. It's two of them. I'm not sure I can do that. It's so trying.
Oh, I pay more. How much? How much?
$20.
Oh, way to go. Milk her for every penny.
Okay, we're going to give screen sharing a rest while I come to you. And we've been going for half an hour now. I want to see if there's any questions.
Quick one, Karel. Can you speak to transformation of the supporting character? Is there a sort of equal and opposite reaction to the protagonist, or can they be on their own separate arc? Do they need to transform? Haven't thought any of these through, but questions that spring to mind.
I don't think there's any rule. I think supporting characters, the word says it, they're there to support, to lead. I think if they have their own transformation, that may be a bonus, but you don't want them to have the same transformation or a similar transformation to the main character. If you look at Three Billboards, there's a clear journey for both. They each are on their own trajectory, their own path. And Dixon learns love, really, because that's the lesson from Chief Willoughby in this letter, that to be a good detective, he needs to learn to love. He needs to, learn to accept and look at the people. He needs to serve and protect people rather than exert his power. And on the other hand, I think the mother, she needs to accept as well. And so there's love and acceptance maybe is the main theme of that film, but each of these two characters need to go through that in a different way. But I think in that film, certainly there is a journey of acceptance for Frances McDormand's character, but it's even more manifest, I think, for Dixon. But it's not a given. Very often the main transformation is just with the main character, and the others may be static. I used to work in a way when I was developing stories with writers, where I would draw a continuum that would represent a theme. So, for instance, say if you're if you're, and again, I'm going to put it really simply, and it's probably not doing justice to 3 Billboards, but suppose that the theme is about love and acceptance. Say it's love. What's the opposite of love? It's hate. So you would have the continuum with extreme hate on the left and extreme love on the right, and you would hope that your characters then move on that continuum, not from extreme left to extreme right. That's not credible, but from somewhere to somewhere. And different characters can move in different directions, and others just stay on that continuum and don't change. Ultimately, you decide who's your main character, who's your main transformation character, and every other character kind of needs to support that. We'll come to that in a minute, because we've got a few examples that talk about supporting characters lending their voice to the theme. When they're important enough, they may trigger a fork in the story, and they may start a subplot. And there's a good example in one of the screenplays that some of you have read as part of the immersion screenwriting course. This is in Bruges. If we look at the character of Ray on the right, he has a subplot that, and you could argue that for him it's the main plot, because it is his major event, his inciting incident, that makes him meet this romantic character, and that then starts the romantic subplot.
You and your buildings. Hello. Do you speak English?
No.
Ah, yes, you do. Everybody does. What are you filming midgets for?
It's a Dutch movie. It's a dream sequence. It's a pastiche of Nicolas Roeg's Don't Look Now.
The film is obviously multi-layered and quite complex. The wound that Ray lives with is the fact that he killed a child, and the midget obviously is a visual representation of that wound. And in that way, the romantic subplot is linked to his wound. Now, it has been said that if you struggle to structure your film, if you have a difficult concept and you don't know how to bring this into a cinematic format and a cinematic structure, what you can do is introduce a romantic character. And it seems that this happened in Bruges, because her appearance in the story creates the inciting incident, and then as a result of that will drive the actions of Ray. He will have an objective, so he pursues her, and that gives his trajectory an outer focus, an external focus, while he goes through his inner journey, his inner transformation. Because sometimes you have films where you have a very strong inner transformation and a very weak outer objective, and it's hard in the first place to market those films, but it's also difficult to keep the attention going for an audience unless you are absolutely superb. The likes of Ingmar Bergman, they didn't struggle with that. It was just about that inner transformation most of the time. So here in Bruges, check it out, have another read of the script or watch the film and see if you can kind of deconstruct how that subplot plays in the bigger picture of the film. So these are all supporting characters that play a role somehow in the plot or the subplot. Now another role is exposition, and exposition seems to sometimes be part of the plot. But when I talk about supporting characters who are part of the plot, you can't take them out. They need to be in the plot with those functions and character traits. When we speak about exposition characters, they're somewhat more replaceable. You can bring that exposition in different ways. And a good example of a typical exposition character is in Inception, Emma Page's character of Ariadne. She asks a lot of questions that we have as the audience, and that our main character knows the answer to. So our main character cannot ask those questions. Normally, you would have the main character ask the questions. Great example there is The Matrix. It's known for being the film with the most questions asked by the main character in the first, half hour or hour of the film. And that brings us in a stronger place of identification, because we want those questions answered just like the main character. In Inception, that's not the case. Dom Cobb, the lead, the main character, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, he knows everything. So we want to know what he knows. And then Ariadne comes in, she asks those questions. But the result of that, the unintended result, is that we're going to identify with her because we have the same questions as her. So we feel just as curious as she does. So we identify with her, which takes us out of the identification with Dom Cobb temporarily, which is not ideal. So if you must, you've got to, but ideally you have that exposition brought to the main character. But let's have a quick look at how this plays out in Inception.
Cobb can't build anymore, can he?
I don't know if he can't, but he won't. He thinks it's safer if he doesn't know the layouts.
Why?
He won't tell me. I think it's Mal.
His ex-wife?
No, not his ex.
They're still together?
No. She's dead. What you see in there is just his projection of her.
What was she like in real life?
She was lovely.
So it's a strong moment in the film, and that moment now is shared with a supporting character. That's not ideal, because this strengthens our relationship with Ariadne, not with Dom Cobb. So you got to be really careful how you play out your exposition in your film. If you're completely stuck, you've got to find something original, and that's exactly what the writers of The Big Short did when they had to explain what the title of the movie actually means. What does it mean to short something?
Basically, Louis Rainieri's mortgage bonds were amazingly profitable for the big banks. They made billions and billions on their 2% fee they got for selling each of these bonds. But then they started running out of mortgages to put in them. After all, there are only so many homes and so many people with good enough jobs to buy them, right? So the banks started filling these bonds with riskier and riskier mortgages. Thank you, Banjo. That way, they can keep that profit machine churning, right? By the way, these risky mortgages are called subprime. So whenever you hear subprime, think shit. Our friend Michael Burry found out that these mortgage bonds that were supposedly 65% AAA were actually just mostly full of shit. So now he's going to short the bonds, which means to bet against. Got it? Okay.
Charles Randolph wrote The Big Short, and the scene was actually introduced by a voiceover that says, and then we've got Margot Robbie in a bubble bath explaining what Big Short is. So it comes out of nowhere. It is somewhat nonsensical, but it does the job, and we all have a laugh. Margot Robbie had a more important role in Charles Randolph's latest movie, Bombshell, where she is part of the lead crew of 3. Here in this film, she just came in for this particular scene. So that's exposition. That's an exposition character. Let's now go to how supporting characters can play into the theme and the arc. We've played scenes here, clips from Touch of Evil, and I have touched on the character of Pete Menzies. Sergeant Pete Menzies, played by Joseph Kalea. And we're going to have two scenes in which we see the transformation of this supporting character, because it can be argued that there's only minimal transformation for the leads played by Charlton Heston and Orson Welles themselves. So the first that you're going to see, this is from early in the film, we see how Pete Menzies is 100% behind his hero, Quinlan. And in that respect, any outsider is an outsider to him. So whatever moral position Quinlan takes, no matter how despicable that position is, Pete Menzies will follow him.
Invited some kind of a Mexican.
Oh, I don't think Mr. Vargas claims any jurisdiction.
I should hope not. 2 people, Americans, are blown to hash with dynamite practically in my own police station.
I wonder, what makes you so very sure it was dynamite?
My leg.
Your what?
His gay leg. Sometimes he gets a kind of a twinge like folks do for a change of weather. Intuition, he calls it.
So yeah, his second in command defends him. It's intuition. It's not fact based, let alone legal, but it works, and Pete is all behind it. Now that starts to kind of falter halfway the story when it becomes apparent that Quinlan has planted evidence, and here's the end of that scene where there is some hesitation in Pete Menzies' position, and he takes a stance that kind of draws Quinlan's beliefs into question.
What's the matter with him, Hank? Is he crazy? Yeah, that must be Ed crazy. Hank, what are we going to do with this Grandy guy? Take him in? Grandy?
I think you ought to realize, Quinlan, that when a man of Argus' position is willing to testify...
What are you working for, the Mexican government?
I'm working for the district attorney.
Well, listen, I got a position in this town, a reputation. Who's Vargas? Vargas is kind of important, too, Hank. Somebody's going to have to give in on this thing. Either that or somebody's going to be ruined. Captain Quinlan, what do you want?
So when Joe Menzies says someone's going to have to give in on this thing, he's anticipating that it will be Quinlan, and that Quinlan is wrong. And he will play a very important role in the end of the film. You can look at, we'll have a chat about Archetypes in a minute. You can consider him a shapeshifter, but equally, he is the character with the greatest moral transformation in the film, greater than the lead. So therefore, you might also label him as the hero, the transformational hero of the film. Often these supporting characters are there to do the opposite. So rather than having Quinlan, who's immutable and sticking to his own guns, and we have Menzies changing, in The Godfather, it's the supporting character who is immutable and is there to show us the change of the main character. So in the scenes with Fredo, we see how his brother Michael is really descending towards the dark side. We'll have a few scenes, 3 in total. The first from The Godfather 1 and then 2 more from Godfather 2, in which we see a gradual distance between the two brothers.
Mike, you don't come to Las Vegas and talk to a man like Mo Green like that!
Fredo, you're my older brother, and I love you. But don't ever take sides with anyone against the family again. Ever.
So that's a warning, and we see that they're brothers and they respect each other. But this is early in the trajectory, and Fredo is the benchmark, and then we see how Michael evolves versus his brother. This is a scene from Godfather 2.
You can tell me about this investigation. Anything more?
The Senate lawyer, Questat.
He belongs to Roth. Fredo. You're nothing to me now. You're not a brother. You're not a friend. I don't want to know you or what you do. I don't want to see you at the hotels. I don't want you near my house. When you see our mother, I want to know a day in advance so I won't be there.
I didn't take the time to watch both Godfather films as research for this film, for this class again, because that would have been, close to 7 hours, I guess. It's like a whole working day. But I believe that this third scene that I'm going to show you is the end of their relationship, and this is the Judas kiss. So the betrayal of the brother is now paid back by the reverse betrayal.
There's a plane waiting for us to take us to Miami in an hour. Don't make a big thing about it. I know it was you, Fredo. You broke my heart. You broke my heart.
Godfather is all about family and what Michael Corleone is willing to do for the family. And here we see that he's even willing to go against the family to, maintain the family's power. Somewhat more lighthearted, but ultimately fulfilling a similar function is the supporting character of Megan in Bridesmaids, who initially, in early parts of the film, shows us the contrast, the opposite of the main character played by Kristen Wiig. And by just observing, you may figure out what that may be. So what are the traits of Kristen Wiig's character that are being highlighted by showing the opposite?
And this is Dougie's sister, Megan. Hey.
Hi.
Oh.
Hi.
My grandma's not supposed to have wine. I'll be right back.
Hey.
How's it going?
It's going great. It's going great. I'm on the mend. I just got some pins in my legs. Believe it or not, pins in my legs. Can still do this. All right? A mate fell off a cruise ship.
Oh,
but I'm back.
Shit.
Yeah, oh shit. Yeah, oh shit. Took a hard, violent fall. Kind of pinball down. Hit a lot of railings. Broke a lot of shit. I'm not gonna say I survived. I'm gonna say I thrived. I met a dolphin down there. And I swear to God, that dolphin looked not at me, but into my soul. Into my goddamn soul, Annie. And said, I'm saving you, Megan. Not with his mouth, but he said it, I'm assuming telepathically. We had a connection that I don't even know if I can, oh, jeez. Hey, shut my mouth. Look at, unbelievable. You must be Annie's fella. I'm Megan. It's a pleasure.
Oh, he's not, I'm not with him, sorry.
Oh, all right. I'm glad he's single, because I'm gonna climb that like a tree.
2 words, no filter. That's what Megan stands for. While Kristen Wiig's character is all filter. She is never herself. She is so full of shame. She's constantly covering up. She needs to become more like Megan. So in that respect, Megan is going to be the reflection character that she kind of measures herself against, or we as an audience can measure her against. Another great example of a reflection character is in Get Out. He's the only character that our lead has to talk to directly and say what he means, what he feels.
Well, they got you on display now, huh?
It's weird, man. I just people here too.
It's like they haven't met a black person that doesn't work for them. Yep, you're in it.
Oh, so shit.
I didn't want to tell you.
What?
I got hypnotized last night. Nigga, get the fuck out of here. Oh, yeah, to quit smoking, but it's Rose's mom's a psychiatrist,
so.
Bruh, I don't care if the bitch is Ayanna Van Zant, okay? She can't fix my motherfucking life. You ain't getting in my head.
I know she
called me off guard, right? But it's cool because I'm cured. It worked. Bro, how you not scared of this, man? Look, they could have made you do all types of stupid shit. They have you fucking barking like a dog,
flying around like you're a fucking pigeon.
looking ridiculous, okay? Or, I don't know if you know this, white people love making people sex slaves and shit. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're not a kinky sex family, dog.
It goes a little bit further still, but what this scene does, it does a recap of what we've seen so far and a foreshadowing what may happen next in the film. At the same time, we get an insight into how Chris is thinking, because Rod is the only character he trusts. He's the reflection character and kind of shows us where Chris is on his path, on his journey. These characters all fulfill a certain function. When we talk about hero's journey, we call them archetypes. One of the most successful or most essential or most popular archetypes is that of the mentor. Usually they're wise old men. In The Matrix, it's the Oracle.
Are you sure you want to hear this? Morpheus believes in you, Neo. And no one, not you, not even me, can convince him otherwise. He believes it so blindly that he's going to sacrifice his life to save yours.
What?
And you're going to have to make a choice. In the one hand, you'll have Morpheus's life. And in the other hand, you'll have your own. One of you is going to die.
Okay, we're running out of time, so I'm cutting the clip short. I wanted to mention the character pass. When you write your screenplay in preparation for sending it out to a producer or an agent or an agency or a festival, it always pays to do a pass focusing on each of the main characters. And what I mean by that, your protagonist, your main character first, and then you do another pass for your antagonist. And then maybe you go further, depending on how much time you've got. You can read and you can find how consistent each character is written and whether they get the screen time they need and whether their actions are consistent with the events that happen to them. Because as you develop your story, usually you're in the point of view, and you should be in the point of view of the main character. Sometimes you risk losing perspective, but ultimately each of those characters individually have their own life. And in order to keep that consistent and credible, it helps to go into each of those lives. By the way, this brings us to the 8 tips from Margaret Atwood about writing supporting characters, but it's just about writing any character, really. You draw from the life experience of each of that character. Obviously, you draw from your own life experience, but you also need to build the context for each of the character. You make sure that they're dimensional, in the words of Linda Seeger. Margaret Atwood calls it 3-dimensional, but I guess depending on how important the character is, you're going to add more or less depth. Atwood also suggests you keep a character chart for each of the character, kind of like an index card with the details. You make sure they're interesting. Now, that sounds like this is obvious, but it doesn't always play out that way. So look at your characters. Are they each colorful enough? Are they cinematic? You make them act and speak with purpose, and you take some time to refine their dialogue, because often that sharpens who they are. Choose the names wisely. As an example, she looks at Star Wars Episode 4, where you have names such as R2-D2, Chewbacca, Princess Leia, and Darth Vader, and Luke Skywalker. All very, very different names that set apart each of these characters. And then I should really fix that. You make sure that they're surprising. I have been given license to keep giving examples from Breaking Bad since Stage 32 states that very popular seminar, or rather webinar, with Christopher Mack, who also used Breaking Bad as an example, despite the fact that he's working for Netflix. So here is a character that was introduced in Season 2, Episode 8, and he was just supposed to be a lawyer for the bad guys, and then he became Saul Goodman.
What are you doing, detective? What are you doing talking to my client without me present? You sneaky Pete? Which is which? What did the Academy hire you right out of the womb? You guys get younger every... What'd you say to Babyface, huh? Didn't you say anything stupid? By anything stupid, I mean anything at all. Look at you, mouth open, vocal cords of Twitter. We'll talk about it later. Right now, you out. 10 minutes ago. Go on.
Saul Goodman is this shifty showman. He's very much still Slippin' Jimmy that he was. And in the prequel, in Better Call Saul, we learn what his backstory is. And he was a con artist. He was a con man, and now he's a lawyer. In the same season, later in the show, I think it was episode 13, we're introduced to another iconic character, a character that became the favorite of many, many viewers. And this is the character of Gus Fring on the left in yellow shirt. He is a cold-blooded drug baron, and when he's introduced, he looks all but that.
I would like to know why you wouldn't meet with me yesterday.
I'm sorry, I'm not following.
I sat here yesterday waiting to meet with someone. I believe that person was you.
I think that you're confusing me for someone else.
I don't think I am.
Sir, if you have a complaint, I suggest you submit it through our email system. I would be happy to refer you to our website.
I was told that the man I would be meeting with is very careful, a cautious man. I believe we're alike in that way.
These are the critical words. I believe we're alike in that way. So we see some of our main characters' future in the character of Gus Fring. Unforgettable character. He stayed around not just for another season, but then came back in the prequel show, Better Call Saul. The third character I'm going to show you is less of, how would I say, he's not as colorful when he appears. He's more of the standard cleanup guy, similar to Leon, the nettoyeur, the cleaner from the Besson movies, or the character in Pulp Fiction coming in to clean up the mess. But then Mike becomes another beloved character, so much so that when he had his last scene on the set in season 4 or 5 of Breaking Bad, everyone was so sad that they were wearing black armbands to mark the departure of Mike. But then again, he also came back in that prequel show, and that just illustrates how popular these characters can be, despite the fact that they were introduced as just plot-driven supporting characters. But when you write them really well, your character will love them, and they will love you for it. Here's the introduction of Mike.
Saul Goodman sent me. Come on, inside.
That was our masterclass about supporting characters. If you enjoyed it, why not push the like button? And if you really want to be part of our team and you want to experience the masterclasses when I deliver them live, have a look at the details below the video, and maybe you can sign up for the next course of masterclasses. If you don't want to miss the next one published here on YouTube, then you just subscribe to the channel. It's easy as that. Thanks for watching today, and I hope you'll be with us next time. See you then. Bye.